What is attracting GCC investors to UK property?
What makes the UK different? It's a tried and tested market. I think it's still seen as a bit of a trophy asset to own a property in the UK.
Hello to everyone watching and welcome to Season 3 of the Investment Insights podcast by Select Property. I'm Amber Fur and I'm here today in Dubai with Paige Bennett, partner at international finance brokerage NS Global. So hi Paige, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me. My first ever podcast.
Yes, I'm very excited. So Paige, you specialise in securing UK mortgages for overseas investors.
Yeah.
And as we're here in Dubai, today we're going to focus on GCC investment into UK property.
Sure.
So to start us off then, GCC investment in UK property is set to reach $3.2 billion this year. I think that is something that's quite shocking for some people, especially as the local market here, especially Dubai, Riyadh, is performing so well.
Yeah.
So what is attracting GCC investors to UK property?
Yeah, I think being based in Dubai, it's amazing to see the local market doing so well. It's absolutely booming in Dubai. It'll be interesting to see what happens with prices, I think, over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
What makes the UK different is it's a tried and tested market, and generally prices tend to appreciate in value over time, and it's usually seen as a safe bet, a safe investment.
Yeah.
And I think it's still seen as a bit of a trophy asset to own a property in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well with people's investments performing really well here, as you said, it can actually give them sort of more cash liquidity to invest and to diversify elsewhere.
100%.
And with you saying about that trophy asset, do you find that with your clients it's quite common for people to invest for their child's education, whether they live in their investment homes or not? Do you think that, the kind of UK's prestigious universities, the higher education system is something that's quite attractive?
Yeah, for sure. So if you take Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham, for example, there's multiple universities in these cities. Some of my clients will buy with the intention of their child residing in the property whilst they're studying. And some clients have the intention to actually rent the property to students or young professionals.
Yeah.
And I think that drives rental demand because there is so many students and young professionals in those cities.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you mentioned Sheffield there. We've got a project on Sheffield at the moment, and there are 67,000 students and a 42% graduate retention rate.
Yeah.
So that sort of works out to about 6,000 students per year entering that rental market, most likely.
Yeah, of course. And then you have the professionals that graduate and stay in the cities and work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how common is it for GCC nationals to choose a UK mortgage when they're purchasing property?
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception that clients overseas, and especially in the GCC, can't get a mortgage in the UK because they don't have a credit footprint, or they don't have a bank account, for example. We actually saw a kind of gap in the market as such for this type of key demographic of client. We actually opened our office in Dubai, I think 7 years ago, because we were having an influx of inquiries from clients in the region. So we thought, we'll open an office here. We're kind of on the ground. If any clients want to meet face to face, we can travel around and meet people. And I think being overseas and being an overseas investor, you do want somebody to, an expert in the field to really kind of guide you through the process and explain, because the UK mortgage market is a mature market. There's hundreds of products, hundreds of lenders. So yeah, I think it's a common misconception that clients overseas can't get a mortgage. So that's where it's really helpful to work with a broker that's a specialist in that field.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's quite interesting whenever I tell someone what I do, that I'm based here in Dubai, but it's UK property. People are always quite confused.
Yeah.
But we do also have offices in Hong Kong, Shanghai. I think, as you said, UK property is so attractive to so many overseas investors.
Yeah.
And it is really important to work with those specialists who can sort of guide you through that process.
Yeah, for sure. So we travel around a lot, as I said. So I think last quarter I probably visited every country really in the region, just meeting clients. And I think it's nice to have that, face-to-face aspect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think quite a common question that we get from clients here is that will a UK mortgage impact people's credit score, their assets, their mortgage applications here in the GCC?
Short answer, no. If you have a mortgage in the UK, it won't show up on a Dubai credit report, for example. However, you are required to declare any global debts. But likewise, if you're receiving a rental income, you can also declare that. So it should hopefully offset any mortgage costs and outgoings.
Okay, great. And one thing that is really important to all investors with whatever asset you're investing in is how to structure your assets in the most tax efficient way possible. Now, obviously here in the GCC, that isn't so much of a problem with there being no or low tax on most investments. But can you tell us more about that? How best to structure assets? And of course, I do need to caveat here, we're not tax advisors, but we're not tax advisors.
Yeah, caveat, not a tax advisor. But it is quite common for clients that are investing in UK property to potentially set up what's called an SPV, so a special purpose vehicle that's designed specifically to own property. And there are some tax advantages to doing so. So that's very popular with, even with UK residents. But yeah, a lot of clients now that are buying with the intention solely for investment. It doesn't really work if you're the end user. But yeah, there are some tax advantages to doing so, and we work with tax experts so we can refer clients to the specialists.
Okay, great. And what types of mortgages are available to GCC clients, and what kind of loan to value can they expect?
Good question. So as I touched on earlier, it's very kind of complicated or complex market in the UK, just because it's quite an established market. There's hundreds of lenders, hundreds of products. Clients can get up to 75% loan to value, which I think they're usually shocked at. I think, being overseas, they probably think that they're capped at 50% or something, for example. But no, they can get up to 75% loan to value. One thing actually that I know isn't so common locally in the Dubai market is interest only or rent only if you're looking at an Islamic mortgage. So clients that are buying a property with the sole intention to rent it out, they might be focusing more on, creating a monthly rental income from that property. So for example, if you're taking an interest only mortgage, that means that your monthly payments are lower because you're only paying the interest, you're not reducing the capital balance. So that can generate or increase the monthly profit. Whereas locally in Dubai, that isn't so common. It's just a kind of amortizing loan over 20 years. Also, another thing actually that's worth pointing out is there are a lot of lenders in the UK that can offer Sharia compliant finance.
Amazing.
So yeah, there's a range of products as well for that. So that's very important to a lot of my clients.
Okay, great. And I think as well, something to point out and something that's quite common among our clients is that mortgaging through some of the examples and the products that you just mentioned can actually enable people to buy more than one property, to diversify in property types, different cities. So I think that is something that's also really popular, rather than perhaps here sort of putting everything into one property.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of the mortgage product, the investment product, the type of apartment or the type of property people go for, it really is all down to your sort of personal goals, budget, as you said, whether you're investing for your child, whether you're investing for rental return or a mix of both.
Yeah, so we'll sit down as part of our first call with a client. We'll sit down and establish what their preferences are, their risk appetite, and the kind of purpose of buying the property. There are two main reasons that people will invest in property. So either for capital growth, as we mentioned in the first question, capital appreciation on an asset. Generally over time, property prices increase in the UK. And again, some clients are purchasing the property because they're looking for that monthly rental income. So it really depends on the client's needs, preferences and their goals really. And again, if they're looking to purchase a property with them being the end user or their child residing in the property, their preferences and their goals will differ to an investor that has 100,000 to invest. And like you said, they might want to split that up into buying 3 properties or 4 properties rather than just one. So it really depends on the client and their preferences.
Okay, so it's really consultative.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And something else that I just wanted to discuss as well is the UK GCC visa waiver. So that came into effect in February this year. And I think we hear so much about expats, about British people living in Dubai as we do, or living in any country in the GCC. But I think now we're starting to see, GCC nationals, it's so common for them to travel to the UK over the summer months when it's so hot here. And this visa waiver will just make that even easier and really make property transactions easier, make it a lot easier for people to go and visit the properties that they want to buy, or if it's off plan, you know, visiting completed developments from that same developer. I think that will really add a sense of kind of security and credibility.
Yeah, I think that's really good because, you know, GCC clients are investing in the UK. Obviously, your stat earlier was 3.2 billion.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we want to entice these people to invest, and there has to be some, you know, other kind of benefits as such as well, and allowing these people to visit properties and make the right investment choices. So yeah, I think that's a really good move.
Okay, great. And then final question. So can you summarise the mortgage process and a kind of rough idea of timescales? I know it's a bit of a minefield, but...
Yeah, so it really depends who the client is, you know, who the lender is. There's kind of a range of different things that could potentially affect the timescale. We usually say from application to offer, maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Just
because clients are based overseas, there's some enhanced due diligence that's required and some additional checks and things. Obviously, because the lenders can't just run a UK credit check on them, and it, you know, takes 2 seconds to come back. So it's a little bit more of a lengthy, in-depth process in that sense. But we, as a broker, that's our job. We handle everything for the client. We're the middleman between the client and the lender. Okay. But the process, so we would be introduced to a client from one of your property consultants. We can have an initial telephone conversation or meet them. It's totally up to the client. We'll usually take anywhere up to an hour really to fully discuss the client's financials, their, as I said, goals, preferences, risk appetite, etc. We will then put some terms together for the client, and what I mean by that is we'll speak to the lenders, and depending on what the client's goals and preferences were, we'll come back to them and say, you know, X, Y, Z, these are the mortgage options. When we've confirmed and kind of decided on a lender and a product, we'll collect all of the client's documents, you know, standard passport, proof of funds, etc. Okay. We'll then submit the application to the lender. We'll get the valuation instructed. The lender will then do their internal checks. That's the kind of 6 to 8 week window. The valuation's been done in that time as well. Mortgage offers issued, and then it's over to the solicitors to progress with completion.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was really detailed. And finally, do you have any sort of closing comments, any kind of feel of the way that the interest rate market's going to go?
Yeah, so I think just to close on a positive note, actually, so it's obviously no secret that interest rates are quite high at the moment in the UK. But I've been to a couple of kind of seminars and, you know, just being in the market. The general consensus is that the Bank of England base rate will start to come down over the next 12 to 18 months. And again, another caveat, I'm not an economist, but so it should be really positive, and yes, should drive investors to
Absolutely.
The UK. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a really positive message as well for investors who are investing off plan. That, you know, if you sort of purchase now, the kind of consensus is from economists is that it will have come down by then, which is great.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So yeah, it should be positive all round.
Absolutely. Okay, well, Paige, thank you so much. That's been such a valuable conversation, and I'm sure it's been really helpful for a lot of people watching. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And for everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And I will put the notes of NS Global and Paige's details in the description.